Hey guys, so I am coming live again here because I don't know, I love being live. I gotta set this camera up correctly for like my lives. I don't know. You can see my astrology chart right in front of me. Let me give you a little snapshot because I just snapped this off of my Astro Gold app that I have, and I printed it out for you. So if you want to print it out for yourself, be my guest. What's up, everybody? Yeah, this is a live chat, so feel free to like holler at me once you come on. But what this video is about the Sun, Saturn, Mercury conjunction in the sky right now. What's up? If I can't see your name, it's because it's too far away, but I'm happy that you're here. The Sun, Saturn, Mercury conjunction in the sky, and the fact that it is in fact sextile to Jupiter, and what this all means and why it's significant. So it is significant. It's really powerful impact when the sun, which really encourages us, whatever is brought to light, whatever is brought to focus, whatever we identify or identity. Now, whatever is conjuncting the sun currently, what is it and how does it affect our identity and what we think about ourselves, what we feel about ourselves? Well, we have Saturn and Mercury at 9 degrees Pisces right now. And the sun, like I said, it represents ego. But not ego in a bad way. Ego is not actually the way it's used. You know, we misuse words so much. We put connotations on them that shouldn't be there. Ego is a healthy understanding of where you end and somebody else begins. And it is the choice of all of you and your consciousness, and how your consciousness takes all of your character traits, all of your identities, and it puts it together like a puzzle. Like a bunch of puzzle pieces, it puts it into one. And the one that it forms is your ego. It is not a false representation of who you are. It is a conscious representation of all the parts of you and how they work together. So that is what ego is, and that's what the sun represents, right? It also represents creativity, and it represents courage, and it represents love, and it represents the heart chakra. You can see my little pendant right there. It represents all of those beautiful, wonderful things. And what does that mean then when it's conjunct Saturn? Well, what does Saturn represent? Well, Saturn represents restriction. It represents discipline. It represents authority. It represents rules and laws and even regulations. And it represents standards. It represents in a certain degree, it represents hardship or tough love. It represents the father energy. It represents maturity and adulthood. It represents reality. That's what Saturn represents. And there can be a lot of negative connotations to that as well, you know, in terms of restriction as an obligation and fear and being held back from things, or not allowed to do things, or being denial, self-denial. All of those things can come into mind when we talk about Saturn. But we have another player in the game as well, and that is Mercury. Now, what does Mercury represent? Well, Mercury represents pragmatism and logic and intellect and communication and our everyday use of our brain and our ability to use our brain to reach out and connect to others. That's why it rules communication. It also rules what works for us on a day-to-day basis. So Mercury is something that is impacting us and affecting us every day. We have the sun and Mercury impacting us all the time. They're inner planets, so they're more our sense of reality than maybe even we realize Saturn is. Saturn kind of puts the blocks around and builds and constructs reality. But Saturn doesn't restrict us from growing that reality out. And what's interesting is all of these things, all of these planets, this conjunction is happening in Pisces. And Pisces is certainly the nebulous. It is certainly representative of that space that has no shape or has no form. And that's so beautiful. That's why reality, which is dictated by Saturn, continues to expand and grow, because Piscean energy exists. And the fact that all of these things are happening together, if as an astrologer, I'd be really excited to see this in somebody's natal chart, especially because it is sextile to Jupiter. And even though a lot of aspects can, you know, better or worse, even trines can represent laziness in certain situations. A sextile is always something productive. It's just always something that wants to push forward. So I love sextiles because they are, I think, the most, if I had to put a label on it, the most positive of all aspects, because they're always about productivity and effectiveness and growth and learning and development and possibility. And the fact that Saturn, the Sun, and Mercury are all conjunct perfectly at 9 degrees Pisces. And I'm going to get into a bit about which Pisceans this is impacting the most, but it's impacting us all. Because if I was looking at this in the natal chart, I was like, wow, this person really knows how to get something done. This person really knows how to be inspired by their restrictions to be ingenuitive and develop new possibilities, because that's really the time we're in now. And so what I really want you as an individual to think of, no matter what your zodiac sign is, I want you to think of, what are my limitations right now? What are my struggles? What are my blocks? What are my challenges? What are my obstacles? Not only what can I learn from them, but how can I look at them now in a different way, as staircases, steps, stepping stools, building blocks, possibilities. I want you to start trying to take what you're seeing now as restrictions and use them more as resources or material to start building something with them, because this mindset is particular to that ability, the ability to expand upon restrictions, to have the self-discipline, to know enough, like what can and isn't, what is and isn't possible based on current situations, and then to go one step further and say, okay, well, let's look beyond the current situation. Maybe I have to build something that doesn't exist yet. This is a very ingenuitive time. It's a very powerful mashup, and I really, really love this energy. I've said it before, the Saturn-Jupiter sextile is lasting, I think, up through April. This is a very productive energy, and anybody that's born within this time, they're going to have a natural sense of productivity. And part of productivity is not just, I'm expanding, I'm growing. No, it's also the discipline, the self-discipline, which really Saturn conjuncting the Sun really represents. The self-discipline, the ability to not have the walls or restrictions on the outside, but to have the skeleton on the inside that is firm and strong, so that you don't need all the training wheels and restrictions on the outside. Because the more we're capable within ourselves, the less laws and rules and restrictions we have externally. And so Saturn is going to get harder and harder and harder on this world, until this world starts to get harder and harder and harder on itself, and start expecting adulthood and maturity and internal structure, as opposed to all the external structure. And I think that's really what's changing the tides right now and breaking through right now, a consciousness and development toward that modality, as opposed to maybe the modality we have right now. The only thing that really helps you get anywhere is your own personal sense of self-discipline. And when you meet something that is challenging, what can I do? What is it supposed to teach me? But also, what can I do with what's in front of me? Stop thinking about what I want to be in front of me and what I want to work with, and start looking for the potential that is in front of you and what you can work with. And in that way, you're going to be so creative, and be more creative than you ever thought you could be. There's no time for creativity that is more intense or brilliant than when you're stuck in a box. And ultimately, that's really the true test of creativity. What can I do with stuff that I didn't want, with restrictions, with blockages? What can I do at this current time? but always remain productive. And that sextile to Jupiter is really enabling that capability. We also have the North Node conjuncting Chiron, which means that the South Node is in opposition to Chiron. That will start to break up over the next 2 months as Chiron continues to move away from the nodes, as they actually start to separate. But that can also be making it more challenging for us to move forward, making it harder, but not making it impossible, making us have to grow up and accept certain restrictions or disciplines inside ourselves before we're capable of moving forward. Recognizing, since this is happening in Aries, recognizing that to really truly be worthy of individuality, we must be an adult. We must be of self-disciplined autonomy. That's what we must have in order to really deserve individualism, and how getting sloppy with that doesn't really work out. You have this, you have the North Node beautifully sextile to Pluto. So that does represent dynamic and metamorphic change with how we even view these concepts. And then, of course, you still have the Mars-Venus conjunction that is sextile to, I read that wrong. Pluto is not actually sextile to the South Node. It is the Mars-Venus conjunction. The Mars-Venus conjunction is sextile to the North Node and trine to the South Node. This is giving an air of optimism and almost sexiness to being willing to change from what was comfortable to what is now really necessary in order to move forward. It's almost like we're being set up to desire to be bigger and more of ourselves and more in control of ourselves and our own destiny, to not be afraid of it maybe the way that we used to be. So I think that, Pluto is actually right now, no, it's not. So I'm really excited for what's going on in the sky right now. If you are Pisces 1, but end of Pisces 1, so that would be those of you who have your leap year birthdays. Happy birthday to everybody who's a leap year baby. But if you're born, say, between February, say, 26th up to the 29th, since this is all happening at 9 degrees, this conjunction, the Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are all conjuncting your natal suns. And so there's this intensity of personal awareness. There's this intensity of personal responsibility, and there's this consciousness about your own capabilities and a sense of sort of prioritizing the almost prioritizing your maturity as opposed to hoping for anything else. There's this beautiful consciousness of, it's almost like growing up. It's almost like maturation and what you're capable if you are self-sufficient and self-reliant. There's this consciousness and awareness that should be about you right now, even if it is in some ways making you realize it's not scary to do the adulting thing. It's actually quite exciting. And so I think that all of these energies working together make for an exceptional personality or mentality right now. And if this was in somebody's natal chart, I'd be like, wow, you really got your shit together, or are gonna get your shit together, and are going to be able to create and develop your own person so that you don't need anybody else to tell you who the fuck you are. This would be somebody who really knows who they are and can easily articulate it to other people. Self-reliant, self-efficient, and ingenuitive energy in the skies right now. What's up, everybody? Like I said, I can't see. I honestly cannot see. What effects will Chiron in Aries have on my Aries rising and Chiron? Oh, so I don't know where your rising sign is or anything like that. I'm not really taking personal questions right now, but I can answer that. Chiron in Aries makes a dynamic, it's almost like the dynamic of like the hero mentality or the hero conundrum. this sense of all that I've experienced and all the hardship I've gone through. I don't ever want it to impact anybody else. So there is that energy of making it better, not just making it better for myself, but making it better for other people and really blazing a trail. It's kind of very trailblazing energy. If Chiron is conjuncting your rising sign, that could mean that there is some visible handicap or some visible injury that you wear on your face, or people will be able to pick it up about you almost immediately. I don't know if that's true about you, but I also don't know if Chiron is conjuncting your. I understand that you're Aries rising, Vic, but like where it's located is going to impact. Like, do you know what degree your Aries is at? Yeah, I'm not really taking questions right now. Though, I mean, I'm happy to answer your questions. Just it kind of knocked me off guard. Or you can definitely ask questions about what I just said. It's just the personal questions are usually I do those in a different kind of reading. I really wanted to focus on these energies in particular because I think they're important and that we should be focusing on them. I think the greatest challenge ever is Pisces energy. Pisces energy is so challenging because there's nothingness. There's always possibility. There's infinite possibility. And so it actually takes the most responsibility to connect with Piscean energy because you have to take the responsibility of creation. And I can't think of two better tools than the Sun and Saturn to be able to, and Mercury, to be able to help you take possession of your own creative abilities, because discipline is part of creativity. And without discipline, you will get nowhere. You will always leave everything behind. You will never finish anything. But there is a sense of order that you can now put to things that will help you manifest what you're trying to put together into life, into your life and into yourself, building the self that you really want to be. So I think that this is very almost practical magic, if you will, a practical energy for manifesting something truthful and real and magical in and of itself. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions about this energy. And when I was talking about your Aries rising, it just means that your rising sign is in Aries. It just, where is it? Like, where is it located, as in which degree it's located at will really impact how it's interacting with Chiron and the North Node right now. It may be conjunct, it may not be. So it may not be directly impacting you. But overall, Chiron in Aries is propelled by trying to make things better and easier for other people, which isn't always a good idea either, right? It is propelled by the struggles to be yourself, a feeling of being restricted on allowing yourself to explore and be the person that you want to create instead of the person that you have to be, maybe even restrictions or fears about being on your own that you have constantly had to confront your entire life. This is Chiron in Aries. But if that's conjuncting your rising sign or not, I am not sure without the degrees. That's just what I was trying to say. But Chiron conjuncting that North Node is making things harder. It's making it more challenging, and it's upping the ante to be able to assert yourself and your own sense of self. But it's because it wants to make you realize how much you want it. It wants to make you sure of what you're asserting is yourself instead of what everybody else wants or what you think you should be. Chiron won't allow that. The restrictions that Chiron puts are to make you the strongest and best you can be. And so whatever challenges you're facing right now with Chiron and Aries, if you feel like I'm not allowed to be who I really am, then you have to be that extra strong. Or you have to think to yourself, is who I think I am really who I am? Because maybe that's where the handicaps are. That sense of thinking this is who I am when in reality, I'm not celebrating who I really am or asserting who I really am. Yeah, Chiron and Aries can also make us focus, or not focus, but have to face physical ailments or physical impairments that we have struggled with. Physical mostly in the structure of our body. In Aries, it could have to do with the head in particular, but Chiron usually always has something to do with legs. Think of Chiron was a centaur, I think. So the horse legs or the goat legs, if that's what it is, if I'm getting the mythology correctly. So think of more like physical injuries that have impacted you, and this could be triggering those or become very evident to other people if this is your rising sign interacting. Because anything that impacts your rising sign will be noticeable to everybody. It will be apparent to everybody, even if you don't want it to be. So anyway, this energy right now, I think, is really highly productive. We do have Jupiter squaring Venus, the Mars-Venus conjunction, which can give us a little bit too much impulsivity when it comes to our romantic proclivities, right? A sense of trying to push too hard or push through far or want too much and expect too much. And those expectations could be our challenges. It's like, are we really as great as we think we are? And are our standards too high? Like, what are we delivering versus what are we expecting? So it could really kind of like exaggerate our sense of what to expect, especially out of our romantic relationships. I'm never one for saying lower your standards, but are they standards or are they just fear that is dressed up as standards? And you can tell that is if you're overqualified, like if you're overreaching, like are you seeing yourself realistically is what I would ask. Because there is a sense of exaggerated sense of self or exaggerated sense of romanticism or exaggerated sense of how perfect and exceptional these should be. And that could pose a challenge, especially in this very realistic mindset, very realistic energy that we see ourselves in right now. So that's the one kind of conflict that we may be addressing right now. But aside from that, I'm going to try to read your comments. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm live. Yeah, I'm live. Yeah. Oh, that's good, Vicky. That's fantastic. I know. I'm like, I'm on my phone, guys, so I can't really see the comments as they come up. So I'm kind of like squinting like crazy. But anyway, that was the purpose of this video. That was the purpose of coming on live and talking with you guys to discuss the Sun, Saturn, Mercury conjunction as it is sextile to Jupiter, and that energy for the next couple of days. Mercury moves pretty fast, so it'll clear out quickly. The Sun will be conjunct to Saturn for the next 2 days, 3 days. So ultimately, these energies will start to wane, but this is a really, really great time of clarity and personal realization and not being afraid of what you have in front of you, but instead learning to see it more optimistically and the potential for what you have in front of you instead of restrictions or challenges, like looking at it in a different way. This is a really beautiful way. This is a very ingenuitive spirit, and I love it a lot. So anyway, feel free to ask questions, definitely in the comments below. I am going to log off now since I cannot see you. But like, happy to have you here, guys. Thank you so much for your presence on this video. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Bye, guys.